Welcome to our latest edition of Partnership Perspective. Today we are joined by Jay Voelker, who is the president of Crown Properties Collection, which is a division of Oakview Group. Jay, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me. Excited for the conversation, Curtis.
Likewise. So, Jay, I've been fortunate to get to know you for a little bit. Not surprised at all by the job that you've been able to do over the course of a short span of time within OVG. You transitioned into OVG on the Crown Properties Collection side from the PGA Tour, where you spent about 12 and a half years, most recently as the SVP of Business Development. Jay, I would love to just gain a better understanding of the factors that contributed to the transition, and what about your journey just throughout the course of your career led you to this moment in time within Oakview Group?
Yeah, no, appreciate it. And again, thank you for the time today. And it's always great to chat with you, Curtis. Look, there's a couple ways to take the answer there. I still to this day am so appreciative and feel so fortunate to have spent 12 and a half years at the PGA Tour. I left that place with nothing but, warm feelings and an appreciation for what we hopefully did for each other. I think that's in any employment situation, it's a two-way fit, right? The organization is looking for something out of you, and you're looking for something out of the organization. And when you can create that symbiotic relationship, you tend to stay places for a long time. And I did there. And to the Tour's credit, I was fortunate I'm an impatient guy just in general. I love the New Balance campaign where they say impatience is a virtue. I think that really resonates with me. And so every time I'd have a wandering eye, the Tour was excellent about saying, well, how about we give you a little bit more on your plate? And I like that. I like almost feeling borderline overwhelmed. And so had a great run there, always in a revenue generating position, ultimately getting to lead our global business development team. And I'd say just a couple of things of why the change was. I got to a point, even with which anyone, watching this would recognize, the golf world got a little interesting there towards the end of my tenure with the introduction to Live Golf and a true competitor that we, had not really come across in my previous time there. So that was certainly an element of it. But I think the biggest thing for me was I didn't have the desire to have that be my last kind of adventure. And I always felt that, it's important to get yourself into a spot where you don't know the answers to the tests anymore. And when you're any place for a long time, I would meet with clients and I knew the questions they were going to ask before they asked them. I knew the answers to those questions. And I very rarely found myself in a room where I didn't, know the answer or even the question before it was asked. And I think when you get to those spots in your career, you say, am I really growing? Am I comfortable? Yes. And it's comfortable, like nice sometimes, because you're like, man, I can come in every day and it's not to be on cruise control, but you just get to a spot where you're such a subject matter expert that the challenges are less. And so I knew the day would come when I would feel that I needed a new push and a new challenge. And I think that combination of, candidly being honest, volatility in the golf world, and then the opportunity to do something totally different, very entrepreneurial. PGA Tour around since the 1960s, a very established organization, established business model, established commercial model. Coming to OVG, a company that had been around since 2015 and really since more like 2018, 2019, Tim Lywicki, our CEO, the ultimate entrepreneur, and then to come here and actually start something new inside of OVG as we did with Crown Properties. So really coming from that kind of conservative, traditional big machine model to something hyper growth and entrepreneurial focused. I knew would be really different, and it has been. And believe me, there are days I wish I was back in Ponte Vedra where I knew everything and I was not uncomfortable. But I have found that getting into a new environment has forced me to grow and change, and I probably don't even recognize all the things I'm learning right now. But the big one, long-winded answer to your question, which are most of my answers, Curtis, was I was ready to grow, and this has really provided me an opportunity to do that.
That's incredible. No, thank you for that response. So, Jay, within your current role, just give us a full sense of your overall scope of responsibility. What exactly are you in charge of, just for the audience?
Yeah. So right now, and as we started Crown Properties on October 2nd of last year, we knew to create a new, I would call it boutique premium sponsorship representation agency. We needed a client that would match that kind of caliber and cachet of what we were trying to accomplish. And that is our focus, to be premium, in the world of sports and entertainment. So again, easy idea to write on paper. It only works if you have the right client. And so we were very fortunate to be able to launch this business with our first client being the Madison Square Garden companies. And so now today we are responsible. They are our singular client, but they have a very vast business enterprise. So we are the commercial team for the obviously Madison Square Garden, the building, the New York Knicks, the New York Rangers, Radio City Music Hall, the Chicago Theater, the Beacon Theater, the Rockettes, and the Sphere in Las Vegas. So I always laugh when we say we've got one client. It's like, we got one client, but they got like 10 things. So it keeps us busy.
Oh, that's incredible. So philosophically, how does your experience at the PGA Tour kind of inform your business approach when it comes to overseeing the partnerships business for properties like MSG and the Sphere and some of the other entities that you named?
Yeah, it's been interesting for me. And I kind of I grew up at the tour, so I didn't know a lot different than it. And not to say that we did everything perfect at the tour. We certainly didn't. But I do think that we were very aware of our IP and the value of it and the value of the audience we delivered. And we were really good about commercializing that. And we were, I think, brands who did business, I'll tell you, we were tough negotiators. We were fair, but we really knew our value, and we held that value very closely, and we would fight for that value. I think as I moved into team sports, which was the first time in my career being into a team sport, my initial takeaway was that just there's this nature of it's more regional, and it's not, it's not. And I think as we've come in, I've really challenged, the entire team and the entire organization of MSG to talk about the Knicks and the Rangers are valuable global franchises. They are. They just are. The Knicks resonate in parts of the world all over the planet. And the Sphere is an immensely global platform. The ability to go viral all over the world by advertising and partnering with the Sphere. So we were really good about understanding the value of our IP. And I think as we've come in and taken over the MSG business, we've really said, okay, we need to take that same approach. We need to be cognizant of what we have and not take a deal that we don't like because we're the Knicks and the Rangers, right? Or we're the Sphere. And so I think, or the Rockettes. And so I think introducing a little bit more swagger into the business, to use that word, has been a big piece. And getting salespeople to think, instead of trying to sell me internally why we should do your subpar deal, why don't you go sell the client on way they should do our deal, because we've got this great asset. And so I think that's been a big take of something that we did really well at the tour as a global entity, and trying to take that same kind of lens and approach and that ability to puff your chest out when you walk into a room and be proud of the assets that you have. And by doing so, hopefully monetize them at an exponential level.
Yep. No, that's a great perspective. One of the trends that we continue to see in sports is this increase in desire that sports teams and properties have in creating mixed use development and acquiring other kind of entertainment venues that they can sell as an extension to, right, the playing field, the venue where their team kind of operates. And so, knowing that MSG is a portfolio full of entertainment properties and sports teams, et cetera, what are the main differences you're noticing in that business when it comes to managing partnerships for sports teams versus entertainment venues like what you all are doing with the Sphere?
Yeah, I think that's been such a shift from where I came from, because, I always said the golf audience is not that big. It's a very valuable audience, but they don't look that different, right? It's not a diverse audience at the end of the day. And so what I've really loved about coming to MSG is, I always call them levers in a partnership, right? You want to reach business decision makers. Hockey does that just as good as golf does. So let's talk to you about hockey and let's pull that lever. You want to talk about families? You want to talk about women? Let's talk about the Rockettes, over here, and let's pull that lever. You want to talk about Um, Gen Z, let's talk about the Sphere. Let's talk about people clamoring to get into a building to have that experience. So I think I'm so appreciative of the portfolio that we have. And what I like about it is it allows you to have very consultative conversations with brands. It's not just like buy the portfolio. It really can be talk to us about what's important to you. And if you want youth, if you like it, just depending on what you want, I got a lot of levers that we can pull over here. And that I did not have at the PGA Tour, right? Like this was our audience and you're buying that audience and that's kind of who you get. And the same people that watch the PGA Tour, watch the LPGA Tour and watch the USGA. And it was just kind of the same people, regurgitated. Where here, and this stat always fascinates me at the Garden, on a nightly basis, there's almost 83% turnover in people that come into the building. So you're just getting these unique audiences. And depending on who the act is, if it's comedy one night, if it's Taylor Swift another night, if it's Billy Joel playing his last show this Thursday, it really can reach all these different demographics. And it just makes you a more valuable partner, I think, to these brands whose businesses are evolving. And the audience they care about today might not be the audience they care about in year 2 or 3 or 4 of a partnership. So then being nimble and flexible enough to say, as your business evolves, we will evolve with you. Like I said, it sets you up to be really good partners.
That's awesome. Transition into the venue side a little bit, and you all have no shortage of iconic venues, right? You have the Beacon Theater, which I think opened in 1929, Chicago Theater, 1921, Radio City Music Hall, 1932, I believe. What role does innovation play when building out the commercial strategy of some of these properties that have a lot of, historical, just tradition? When you think about the future, what role does innovation play when it comes to kind of building out that process and driving commercial success?
Yeah, I think that's it's a great question. And I think it's always when you have iconic properties in an evolving world, right? It's a delicate balance to say we don't want to lose our history or our lineage or what has made a venue iconic, but we also don't want to be kind of stale and we need to have that forward thinking. And so, for us, it's been really about, and when we go meet with brands, one of the things I always ask for at the end of a meeting is like, please give us homework. Like we would like a homework assignment from you. And we would really like brands to challenge us to talk about what are they trying to accomplish and how can we tie that into innovation, whether that be evolving the content that's in the building, whether that be evolving the building itself, right? And obviously there's really authentic and organic ways to integrate people who have services that then fit into a brick and mortar, venue. But I think we try to be less of the drivers of this is what this asset should be, other than the kind of holistic approach versus the canvas that a brand can paint on. And so I think, we get pushed probably too far sometimes and say, okay, well, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that at Radio City Music Hall. So you do kind of have to ratchet people back sometimes. But I think what we typically, we try and find that balance of tying to the iconic element that we have, but also ensuring that every partnership is forward looking, because I do think that's really important as well.
Yeah. Great perspective there as well. A lot of changes are currently taking place in the marketplace, obviously within sport and entertainment, but then also from a macroeconomic perspective. Are there any challenges that you're noticing specifically as it relates to the portfolios that you manage against within Crown Properties that could have an impact on your ability to grow, retain revenue for, again, such a portfolio that's pretty expansive?
Yeah, I mean, the big one everyone's aware of is obviously we have an election in November, and what that's going to mean. I mean, you follow the market last week, tough week, in the market. And I think uncertainty, just full stop uncertainty, is always a very difficult place to do what, guys and gals like me do, which is ask you to sign up for something for multiple years. Right. And I'm a big term length guy. Like I'll give you a little less cash if I can have a little bit more term, I always say, let's make as few sales as possible. And if we get long-term lengths, then we don't have to resell it for a while. So I think uncertainty in general, we've obviously got an economic and political and geopolitical when you think about just unfortunately, two ongoing wars in our world. So impacts on supply chain. There's just so many factors that can then impact a brand's business. And really, until you're sitting with them in a conference room, sometimes you aren't able to have the true insight into what those challenges they may be facing are. I think so that's the kind of big one. If you boil it down to like why people buy sponsorship at the end of the day, I think the two biggest things that we continue to see, one, there's this big shift to experiential, right? Like that is the place that everyone wants to be. They want their brand to be around experiences that are positively impacting their customers, their potential customers. Like that's it. Like the days of, it's not to say brand awareness is not important anymore, but it certainly has taken a backseat, in my opinion, to experience. So do you have the ability to curate the right experiences? Do you have the portfolio that allows you to curate the right experiences? Candidly, I think about media sales right now and say it's tough because media sales has no experiential element to it. Honestly, for the most part, you're just selling that exposure, whether be it linear or however you may be selling it. So I think we are fortunate in that the Sphere alone, right, to me right now is the greatest experience anyone could go have. Like if you haven't been, you have to go and experience it because you really cannot explain it. You have to go experience it. So I think that's number one, is this kind of ensuring that you have an asset mix that's going to allow experiential and engagement with consumers in real time. And then the second one is the why we did this. Like brands need to explain why they did this sponsorship these days. There's a lot of ways for a company to spend their money. And I think they have to be able to rationalize not only externally to their customers, but internally to their employees. Why did we pick this thing? What's the good that we're going to do collectively with this rights holder? And like, why did we do it? I think it tells you about the ethos of the organization, what matters, core values. And we spend a lot of time when we go sit with brands talking about that. Talking about what are their values and how can we use a partnership to tell that story, because that is how that's the type of brand awareness they care about now, which is someone wasn't a customer, but they saw we did this thing and they knew it was for good in some capacity. Now I'm inclined to support that brand.
See, that's always just, you gave a lot of great context, everything from kind of just understanding the trends that are impacting the partner's business, which ultimately are really going to have an impact on who they spend dollars with, how much they contribute, and that sort of thing. But then also trying to find synergistic relationships between, the property and the brand and the values that marry the two organizations together. And obviously it just becomes much more than a transaction and a partnership that's just set up for the long term. So a lot of great context and feedback there.
I think if you ever were to see one of our presentations, you will always see, like, call it slide 1, slide 2. The thing I challenge my team with right away is like, why are we connected to it? Like, what are the things that we care about that this brand care? We got to start there. Like we have to start with, we see the world the same way. Because if you can't get out of the gates with that, you're going to have a hard time selling the assets you're trying to pitch on slide 10, 12, 13, 14. So it really does. And I always say, like, I'd rather us spend 15 minutes of the meeting on slide 1 and never get to those other ones if not, because this is alignment. And I think that's a very critical thing. And, sponsorship is a trust fall exercise. The brand is going to go, I'm going to give my brand to this rights holder, and I'm going to hope that they hold up the values that we have. So you really got to make sure that that's a core piece of any partnership on the front end.
See, now, you and I have had this conversation before, and I know that this is a passion area that we share. So pardon me, I'm going to go off the rails a little bit. But as it relates to that aspect of just training, developing, and just getting your staff to think differently about the sales process and being more intentional about the questions that they ask, the research that they bring to the table, the diligence that they do on the back end to really understand the partner's business. When you came into the organization, how did you kind of take your team from here? This is our approach to the partnership sales process, to then kind of thinking a little bit more differently as a consultant, kind of coming to the table with the justification as to why you and the prospective partner even having the conversation anyway. Just talk to me a little bit about the process of getting somebody to think differently about just partnerships in general, the approach to it.
It's ongoing. I would say, there's a whole team of people on my team who had a really not fun weekend because we're going to a big meeting on Wednesday with a CEO and a COO of a company, and I saw the deck on Friday, and like we weren't close. Like we were not having the lens that you're talking about here. So, luckily, we're getting together later today. I think we're going to be in a better spot. But no, I think it was. Look, again, I'm fortunate. I'll go back to credit the PGA Tour. I came into an organization that asked for very expensive things. Like to put your name on a golf tournament for 1 week was, in the 8-figure range annually, mid 8 figures, high 8 figures. They were significant spends. And then you're asking somebody for 1 week. So you better have a really good story as to why this makes sense for them. And I think I was a little spoiled by that was my background. And now when I've come into this team, I think one of the things, and it's not an indictment on them, it's just we were pitching assets. We were just, I'll sell you this sign and that sign's worth X. And that's great for selling a VP of marketing who's got a budget that they got to stick within. And they're like, well, I do need exposure in New York, so I'm going to do this. But I want our team with CEOs. I want our team with COOs and CMOs. Like that is where you unlock the big revenue and the big partnerships. And in order to do that, you got to have the business case and you got to prove the type of partner you're going to be in that setting. And if David Stern, the former, NBA commissioner, now passed away. I remember I read his expose when he passed and they had said, when David sat down with a company, he knew more about that company than the people on the other side of the table. And that really stuck with me. And I have told our team, like, if you go into a meeting and you don't understand their business, you just got no chance. And that doesn't mean I know what they sell. I know this widget they sell. I'm talking, have you poured through their quarterly reports? Have you read the CEO's annual letter to his employees? Do you know how they spend their charitable dollars? Like you have to really, spend hours on this. I'll go on a plane trip and I'll print out, 150 pages of stuff on a company and I'll spend a whole plane trip highlighting I just want to be smart about their business because what you don't realize that 90% of the people who walk in their office and ask for money didn't do that. Yeah. So immediately you put yourself in the 10%. Yeah. Now you got a chance. You don't have to beat 90% of the people. You only got to beat 10%. Yeah. So you've put yourself in a different stratosphere. And so it's really been a big thing that I talk to our team about. If you don't invest the time to be good in the room, you don't deserve to make the sale. You just don't, because someone's going to. And I always tell our team, like, I just want to be better than everybody else. Like, I just want to be better. They don't even have to buy every time, Curtis. But if we walk out, and this happens, and I love it when we walk out of a room and a CEO or a CMO says, that's one of the most thoughtful presentations we've ever gotten. If we do that, we're going to win plenty. We're not going to win them all. We just don't, right? There's a lot of factors that are outside of your control. And I always tell our team too, remember that they do not buy in the room. They buy in a room that you're not in. They sit in an internal meeting with their key stakeholders and they say, do we want to give these guys at MSG, X amount of money? You're not in that room. So the only thing you can do is set yourself up really well for when they have that internal meeting. And when you walk out and someone says, one of the best presentations, you really understand our business, you really understand our brand, and all of our decks look like theirs, not ours. We don't sit there, no Rangers on the first slide. It's their brand on the first slide. So we are in a process of getting my team, I think, to think more like that way and, expediting that process. But I just believe I don't want to have to beat 100%. If I only have to beat 10%, my odds go up exponentially. And I think you can do that by being really thoughtful when you walk into a room with a business leader.
Man, I'm not going to lie to you. I had a few more questions, but I really think that that's like everything that you shared is probably the best place to really just stop the conversation, just because there was a lot of just great insight and perspective that I would love for that ending point to be the most impactful point of the discussion, the key takeaway. And really appreciate your time and energy during the conversation, Jay, and always a pleasure to reconnect with you. And next time, hopefully when we get you back on, obviously millions upon millions of dollars would have been generated on behalf of MSG through Crown Properties, but hopefully we're able to do this in person next time. But always great to see you. Glad that you're doing well and look forward to doing this again at some point.
Well, thank you very much, Curtis. I appreciate you inviting me. I always like talking shop with you because I think we just have fun doing it. And like I said, if you can't get passionate about this stuff, you're in the wrong business, and you crank me up and I get excited about it. So thank
likewise,
you.
Man. No, this definitely made my day. Definitely made my day.
You.
Thanks again.
All right. Great to see you.
Likewise, Jay. Thank you.